Hello, America. I'm Mark Levin. This is Life, Liberty, and Levin. We have a great guest, Mike Lindell. How are you, sir?
Thanks for having me, Mark.
It's a pleasure. Now, we're not doing an infomercial.
Right.
I wanted you on the program because you have a fascinating background, and I think it could affect a lot of our audience members. Mm-hmm. You're a big Trump supporter.
Yes.
You are a man of deep Christian faith.
Yes.
You are a remarkable entrepreneur, and you are a drug addict.
Yes, crack addict.
A crackhead. Do you want to explain that to me?
Well, I was, I think my addiction goes back to childhood when my parents got divorced. Divorces weren't common, and I became put into a new school, and I became very shy, or I would show off to people, like do little things like, hey, watch me jump out this bus window. And then it manifested into, using alcohol first, and then got into cocaine.
How old were you when you got into cocaine?
Alcohol, probably late teens, and 16, 17, and then at my 5-year reunion, all my other, everyone's graduated from college, or they're starting families, or they've kept the same employer, and I'm there. And I wanted what they want, and I'm there. I'm all drunk, and I'm telling them about owing the mafia money for football bets, or jumping out of an airplane, or and a parachute partially opening, and telling me all these stories, which were true. But they're going, wow. But it took, because I didn't want to hear what they did, because I wanted what they had. So it became a lot of pains, a lot of inner pain, and then I got into cocaine, and then it was 20 years functioning cocaine addict, and then 10 years crack cocaine. So it was long,
So you're lucky to be alive.
Yeah, 40 years of addiction.
Yeah. And how did you get out of it?
Well,
Do you ever get out of it?
Yeah, you get out of it. I mean, I don't believe addiction's a disease. I believe that all addiction either comes from, wounds as childs, things that happen, or trauma, and that's why veterans can be traumatized later on. Any trauma can manifest into, I believe, addictions to mass pain. And for me, a lot of things had to happen. I lost a 20-year marriage and had all these things happen in the mid-2000s. But in 2008, there was about 3 things that happened, and seeds were planted for me. Drug dealers did an intervention. That was kind of a big thing I had.
Now, why would drug dealers do an intervention?
Well, here's what happened. I was up 14 days, and I was staying downtown in Minneapolis, and a half hour from where I was making or doing pillows, this little schoolhouse. But I had a warrant out for my arrest, and I was going to be found innocent the following Tuesday. So I was hiding out down there, and I come out of the room, and three of the biggest dealers, I didn't even know they knew each other. And I said, what are you guys doing? And the one guy goes, Mike's been up for 14 days. We're shutting him off. And the one guy goes, he looks at me like, what's the matter with you? And he says, you ain't getting anything from my guys. And he leaves. The other guy.
Wait a minute. So up for 14 days. So you were using, and they even said that's enough.
Right.
We're going to cut they must have liked you.
Yeah, well,
They wanted to save your life.
Yeah, here's what he said, actually. They all like me, but here's what they said. I was a good customer, too. but the one guy left then, and it was his place, and he went down the streets and shut off his people. And now I looked over, and this dealer, he finally went to sleep. I ran out of crack, and I'm doing one of these numbers, and I headed down to the streets of Minneapolis about 2:30 in the morning. Couldn't get drugs anywhere, and I went out. I was very resourceful, nothing. I come back upstairs all defeated, and he's standing there waiting up for me, and he says, man, give me that phone. He says, I'm going to take a picture of you. He says, you're going to need it for that book you've been bragging about, telling us you're going to write. And he said, you've been telling us for years this MyPillow is just a platform for God, and you're going to come back someday and help us out of this addiction and all the dealings that we have. And he says, we're not going to let you die on us. Because I would always tell these guys all the time, you guys, this pillow is just a platform for God.
So is this the singular event that started to turn your life around?
No, there was a lot of things, but there was just one thing. Then about 6 months later, my one son, we had came back from a hunting trip, and he was in the driveway, and he says, Dad, I can't stay here anymore. I want to live with my brother. He's got a tear and his lips are quivering, and that hit home to me. I'm not hiding too much from him. And
Because he must have known you were addicted.
yeah, when the kids were from 16 down, they don't remember. My daughter said one time, she says, we're a very dysfunctional family. I said, that was towards the end, and I said, I don't know what that means, but don't say that again. That sounds horrible. But my son hit me with that, and then in December of '08, something really happened that's very important to my story. My friend came to me, and he was my equal. We had both did cocaine the same time in the 1980s started. We both were functioning addicts throughout the 80s and 90s. 2000, we both switched to crack about the same time. And I heard he had found the Lord and been freed of these addictions for 3 years. And he came walking in. I was all by myself, this place out there. I loved everything. I'm just a little pulse out there, alive and with the company and stuff. And he came in, and I go, Dick, what are you doing here? And he goes, the Lord led me here. And I knew he had been straight for 3 years. I hadn't seen him in a year. And I go, well, as long as you're here, I said, I got some questions for you. I said, first one I asked him, I said, is it boring? And he goes, no, man, it ain't boring.
Be clean.
Yeah, being clean or being with God, whatever. I was asking kind of both, and we went into an hour of questions where I had been in and out of treatment in the 80s, and this counselors that have been to school but never been where addicts have been. And he was my equal, where I could, whatever he said, I trusted him because he's been where I've been.
And what did he say?
He said, no, man, it ain't boring. And he's telling me that, questions like, how do you feel inside now? How do you, do you have anything, thinking about the past? Just all different questions, But I didn't quit that day. It was another month later. It was January 16, 2009. And I knew that day, people say, was that your bottom? Well, for money-wise, I made sure I didn't have any money left, because I knew it'd be an incredible story to help people, a story of hope. I would always know these things as they were happening. Something bad would happen, and I go, oh, that's going to be good in my book someday and help people. And it was kind of weird thinking, but that day I knew my calling, that God had chose me for this to help people, and with the addiction and with everything that's going on now, I didn't quite know what I was going to be.
But you meet with him. Did he turn you on to faith?
No, seeds were planted my whole life.
So they planted your whole life. Yeah. Did he give you the jump start to do something about it?
No, I mean, like I say, there were seeds planted. You go back to the days when I'd be in, after my bar, I owned a bar for 13 years. After the bar would close, and my friends would all tell you that, we'd go back afterwards and sit and do cocaine and stuff, and I'd be telling them, hey, these drugs are bad, and I was telling them about end times and Revelation in the Bible I read about in jail, and they would quit that day and find Jesus, and then I'd wake up and go, oh, I'm losing friends, what do I say? I didn't really know, but that was me wanting to convince myself. A lot of the way that I function is I'll be talking to people and wanting what I'm telling them, you know what I mean? And so I'm trying almost to convince myself, but seeds were planted my whole life, and God chased me, basically.
And when did he catch you?
Ready for this? February 18, 2017. That's when I did a full surrender.
2 years ago.
Yeah, to a full surrender. And what happened there, now I can go out and speak out for Jesus like I could a pillow, with that same passion. And I went to U.S. Bank Stadium in Minneapolis about a couple months after that born-again experience, and I prayed 50,000 millennials and told my story about 5 minutes worth, and I'm scared. I don't usually, like I say, I have this. I was petrified, but I was able to do it. And 3 weeks later, I'm at an amusement park with my granddaughter, and all these millennials and these teenagers coming up going, wow, I heard you at U.S. Bank Stadium. I know you changed my life. Some of them said, I'm born again, and your story is so hopeful. Finally, my granddaughter had to say, he's my grandpa, and we need to go on some rides. But I think that was God showing.
What is that like, by the way? You're known everywhere. Mm-hmm. You're ubiquitous on TV, on radio. What is that like? Does that have an effect? I mean, obviously it has an effect, but does that have an effect on your ego? Does that have an effect on your ability to stay straight?
No. It's for me. I mean, I drive a pickup truck, and it's for me. I've always wanted to help people, and to get that feeling back, like those millennials that because I had such a feeling of unworthiness back in the day and inside of me, it makes me feel good. And my thing will be is if I have to be somewhere, and because I'll stop and talk to every person if they want to talk, so I kind of got to time it with that because I'm
You're very outgoing.
Yeah, and then or I'll talk too long. I'm going, okay. But I love it because I love helping people and hearing the stories. When people come up to me now, I mean, Mark, you'd be amazed. It's not about, oh, the pillow helped me. It's beyond that. This platform has went where they either come up and say, wow, your transformation and of what you've done from crack addict to where you are, they're amazed by that and that story of hope. Or they say, wow, thanks for, backing the president, having us back. You tell him we're praying for him. I mean, it's one or the other. I mean, this is amazing for me.
You have a good relationship with your kids?
Yeah. We have all my kids. We haven't left too far from home. I live in the same town I grew up in, and all my kids have worked for me, and now I have grandkids, and it's amazing. They came through. They all played a part in my business, and that's pretty amazing.
When we come back, I want to ask you, because this is part of your life, but you have these other parts of your life too. You're an entrepreneur. I mean, you turned a basic product into a huge business.
Yeah.
But even more, you're now political.
Right.
You're a big fan of the president.
Right.
You showed up at the Conservative Political Action Committee event, and you've managed to stay in business, because a lot of businesses get boycotted as a result of that.
Watch out, I'll double my odds.
That's right. So I want to discuss all that when we return. Right. Ladies and gentlemen, don't forget to watch Levin TV. Levin TV, most weekdays. Just give us a call at 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV, or go on the internet and get us at blazetv.com/Mark, blazetv.com/Mark. We'd love to have you in our wonderful community there. We'll be right back. Mike Lindell. You're a prominent Trump supporter. You show up at his events. Were you an early Trump supporter? What is it about him that you saw that said, wait a minute, that's my guy, and I'm going to be open about it publicly, come hell or high water?
Right. Well, I think part of that is when I came out of 30 years of addiction, I was like a little kid with a clean slate. I didn't know a Republican from a Democrat or liberal from a conservative. I had no clue, but I also knew what was going on in this country and stuff. I'm going, what's happened? I was like, what? People are unemployed. Everything was chaos. We're giving money to countries that I'm going, why are we giving that? There's this thing called ISIS. I was like waking up out of a coma going, what is going on? And then in June of 15, I had a dream. I get these dreams sometimes, and it was very vivid of me being in a room with Donald Trump. And a couple of days later, he announced, he came down the escalator and announced he's running for president. And then the dream came back again. Same dream. It was like a reoccurring. And my sister had called me up, and she said, he's going to win and whatever. And I'm going.
So your sister knew.
My sister had
way
the
back
same
then.
Dream. Yeah, she had the same thing, and she's very, very born again Christian. And she goes, actually, she said I don't know if she said he's going to win, but Donald Trump is who I would go. That she said that, and. Anyway, then I ended up going to Israel that fall, and I went to some guys that you would all know. I went over there, and I asked them, what's a liberal? What's a conservative? What's this? I wasn't even believing that everything, my values were all over here. And I'm going, I go, you're kidding. So I'd look it up and Google it when I could over in Israel when I had a signal. I'm going, are you kidding? I mean, all these common sense things were here, and all my Christian stuff was here, right? And, and then we get a bunch of divine things happened leading up to the summer of 16, and all of a sudden I got an email from Donald Trump, Mike, will you meet me in Trump Tower in New York City for this meeting? I'm going, wow, it's coming to fruition. And my board, I was actually in a board meeting before that, and my corporate attorney goes, if you do this, you're going to hurt our sales. I said, and I was mad. I just walked out, and one of my gals on the board came out. She said, we didn't get this far by you not listening to God. And I went back in there. We didn't get this far by me not listening to God. And That meeting.
So the lawyer, he's cautious corporate lawyer.
Right.
This is stay out of this.
Yeah. Well, there was a couple other ones on
A couple others say, stay out of this, you're going to hurt business.
Right. And everything I've ever done with MyPillow, I have took, this is what I'm supposed to do, and I don't back down for anything. So now I went into New York with high hopes. On August 15, 2016 at 10 a.m., I walked into Mr. Trump's office, Donald Trump's office, and it was just him and I. And he looked up, he says, Mike, you always wear your cross. He says, are you a Christian? I said, yeah. And I said, this is a divine appointment, Mr. Trump. And we started talking. I said, I told him I was an ex-crack addict, and I was, with my foundation, my recovery network, we were going to, to help addicts. And he talked about how he was going to bring jobs back. And he talked about the inner cities. He talked about my Made in the USA. And it was about 30, 40 minutes. And it was like, I'm going, wow, this guy's the most common sense. He's going to be the greatest president in history. And I was just blown away, and I walked out of the office, and now I didn't stop there, and this is really key, which I tell people. I talked to so many of his employees, and every one of them was like talking to one of my employees. I've never had that happen with any other person.
And what do you mean by that?
That the passion they had for him, their loyalty, it seemed like every one of them, he had done something personal to help them. And they said he cares so much about people and I knew he cared about the country, the stuff he's telling me. I go, this guy, I was so excited, and I went all in.
Let me ask you a question. The man you met there and the man you've come to know, is that the man that's portrayed by the media?
No, it's shameful. It is so shameful. I don't understand it. And now, you know what I do like now, though, is I can say to everyone I've talked to, I told you so. All these things that done in spite of the media. And I spoke 3 days before the election in 2016, or three days before, in Minnesota, before he got there. And I ended my speech. I was scared, so scared to get up there and speech, but I started talking, and it's about 2 minutes, and I pointed to the media, and I said, you guys are wrong. He's going to be the greatest president in history. And now I could, my own media and everywhere, they're going, I told you guys, they don't want to, what's funny is they don't know what to say one-on-one. They'll call me, I was just out in California, some very left progressive areas, and I'm talking to people, and they're going, we love what you're doing, Mike, but, what's wrong with you? You're aligning yourself with this, president. I go, what do you mean? Look, and I go down a list. He's done, brought jobs back. ISIS is gone. A high stock market, low gas. I see all my friends now employed, and the wages, whoa, it's just amazing to me. And for the media to attack, I'm just waiting. And I just seen it the other day, like 50-some% approval rating now. I've said it before so many times. Everybody loves our president. Some just don't know it yet. And they're jumping on board, and they come over here and they go, well, I guess they're right. I guess they're right. Pretty soon it's going to be down to just the fake news and a few people going, okay, I guess we give.
All right. Very, very fascinating. We'll be right back. You seem to wear your emotions on your sleeve. You're telling America about your past. You want America to know, because there's a lot of people out there you want to help, which we're going to get to in a minute. Mm-hmm. Your passion for this president, your passion for your faith. Mm-hmm. You go around the country speaking about your faith. Small crowds, big crowds, and what do you tell them?
I tell them, basically I tell them my story, where you always see me with my cross on TV, and God took me. I couldn't talk to people. It goes back to my fear of unworthiness.
Mike Lindell couldn't talk to people.
Right, that's right.
But you don't have that problem now.
Right, I guess not. But, it went back, I think, to, my childhood. We said earlier about that. Going into new school, I just was, you can't get rejected if you don't talk to people. In fact, the first infomercial I ever did, there was a live audience, and the producer called the other one the night before. I said, you're going to need an actor and all this. I said, no, I want to do it like I do at these shows. And
these shows, meaning you used to travel all over the
fairs.
country.
I did it for 7 years when I was turned down everywhere, going show to show and fair to fair all over the country. But I remember the night before, now I didn't know this at the time, this producer was brought in, and by this other friend of mine, and we're doing our reads, and he goes, "This guy's the worst I've ever seen. He's never going to make it. Why did you bring me here?" And the next day, we go to do this infomercial, and I walked out reading my lines, and here's an audience. I was so scared, and we did it, and I finally said, "You guys, we got to pull away the teleprompter and bring in a table like I do at the shows and pretend the audience wasn't there." And we did it, and it aired October 7th, 2011, in the middle of the night. I was living in my sister's basement. I had like 5 employees, me and my kids, and 40 days later, I had 500.
That's amazing.
But you always see me on TV. I always wear my cross. I got attacked for that, where people would call up, and I'm going. But I hadn't done a complete surrender to Jesus Christ there. But it was I believed in God, but I didn't have that personal relationship. And this kept. It was like, okay, God, show me more, show me more. And all of a sudden, one of the things, my friends now. So after I go on for the president, I was invited to the White House for a manufacturers summit, and all of a sudden I go, "Who's sitting here?" And they go, "The president is. He wanted to sit by you." And I'm blown away. So now it's on TV. Here's me and the president, and all my friends are going, "Jesus is real. There's no way this ex-crack addict is standing with the president." But God kept showing me more and more things, and I ended up going to a retreat. It was actually this ring, Operation Restored Warrior. It's actually for veterans, and and I went in there with hope. And I was with this gal that since 2014, and she had that relationship. And Kendra and I, she goes, "Mike, you haven't done a full surrender." And we talked about, "I believe in God." And so, but I knew she was right deep down. And I walked in there. I ended up, Jesus showed up. I did a full surrender. And when I walked out of there, now I can proactively pray. Before I used to reactively pray, "Please God, get me out of this, get me out of this situation." Now I can proactively pray, and it's God's will, because His will is in the Word.
You have a big platform now.
Yeah.
People know who you are. You're trying to use that for good? You're trying to reach out to people who are involved, who are as low as you had been at one point, trying to show them what they can be?
Absolutely, and there's a lot of combinations there. I believe on November 8, 2016, God gave us a second chance, gave us grace when Donald Trump was elected, and this ties in with my faith. Right now, during this time, I believe that this is spiritual warfare in our country too. I believe that. When I go out and speak to people, I spoke at a big church, 4,000 or 5,000 people, telling my story of hope, with the addiction, and then also the part God played in it. And if I sit here and told you my stories, you go, "Wow, I could get to the third one, and if you knew it was real, you'd go, yes, there is a God, there's Jesus, but to do that, and then to help people out of addiction, because I've been there, and then to help them out of that, and then to help the president anywhere I can, going out to the stuff the common sense and the conservative things that's being done, the good things that are getting done in our country, and to help in any way I can there, because to me they all tie together.
What do you do when an addict comes up to you and says, "Mike, I need help"?
Well, right now, I'm setting up, it's a Lindell Recovery Network, and this is where you put in your, a 22-year-old opiate addict might not relate to a 50-year-old meth addict. So I have these hundreds and hundreds, and now it'll be thousands of stories of addicts telling what they didn't like about that specific drug. And now you're watching this website when I launch it, they're going to go, "Wow, that's just like me." The person puts in their age and addiction. So now they go, "This guy made it. He's just like me." Kind of like my friend Dick that came back to me 3 years later. I hadn't seen him. He was my hope match. There's a good word. He's my hope match. So here you have all these hope matches, and then I'm going to go, "Hey guys, over here," and they'll press this button, and I'm going to tell them, "You know what? Here's your help." And what works are the faith-based centers, the Teen Challenge, the Salvation Armies, the Union Gospels. I've vetted over 2,000, it'll be soon to be 4,000 of these help, and I'm going to tell the addict, "You go in here, and when you get out, I'm going to be there for you."
So you're going to use modern technology, the internet, set up a site that's interactive,
right?
So people who are in need can go on that site, write in what they are, what the problem is, and so forth, and then they'll be able to connect to somebody or some
Well,
institution.
they'll be able to go over here. Basically, this is to the addict, not shaming the family going, oh, get your addict help, addiction's a disease and all this stuff to monetize this industry, which is very sad. Give us 50 grand, come into a secular treatment center and insurance will pay for it, or break into your 50 or your 401k and spend all your money on this, and 30 days later going, oh, you're out. No, they're not. They need to be helped inside. They need healing. And so basically what I've done is they trust me, the addicts trust me because I've been there as a crack addict. And I'm going to go, here's their hope matches, because the closer you get to a match is the hope. Here's your help, but here's a key thing. I'm going to tell, it's just like I'm selling to the addict. It's not the family. I'm talking to you, the addict, and to the addict. And I say, you guys, once you get out, I'm going to be there for you. I'm going to have paid mentors all over the country that these addicts, and I'm paying them, they're going to be careers for, that's all they're going to do. And now, if they have a specific problem, there's an app they'll put in, let's say that they didn't get that job. Well, now a mentor will come down and they're their match and they'll get help. It's a circle of help and hope.
Sounds very exciting. I look forward to that being launched. We'll be right back. Mike Lindell. But you're known out there to the American people as the face of a fabulously popular product now that everybody uses in one form or another. And you've been through all these challenges. And yet you've been an entrepreneur throughout, and now you're a very, very successful entrepreneur. There's a lot of people who are wondering how you did it. How'd you do it?
Well, I've always been an entrepreneur. I've had, out of necessity, I think the first thing, my sister flooded a second-story building back in the 80s of an apartment complex with a waterbed. I became a carpet cleaner. And, each thing I did, there was it kind of manifested out of a problem solution. But I want to say, having the passion, having faith, but here's one of the things I want to tell any entrepreneurs out there right now. One of the things I didn't have was a safety net. What we're living in right now, with all these jobs and raises, wages rising, I see it in my own company. I have 1,600 employees, but a lot of them now, and these are careers, a lot of them are going out and taking the chances, starting their own little businesses and stuff, because guess what? If they would happen to fail and learn from their failure, they can go back and do their job, because there are jobs out there everywhere now. It's an amazing time we're living in for that. At this time, everybody, don't be afraid. So many good ideas are left on the shelf of people going, I got a great idea, but I'm afraid. I'm out of fear. Fear blocks all that. It's a false fear. If I didn't, all the things that happened to me, you have deviations, and I will tell you that I'm going to do a thing on deviations. In my company, I have 1,600 employees, about 500 have my direct phone number. Well, I don't get calls. I only get calls when there's a deviation, good or bad. So if there's peace, it's like I can put it out of my head, and that's amazing. Now, if you're an entrepreneur, and no matter how big or small you are, if you watch those deviations and you learn from them, and either focus on the good deviation or learn from the bad, and that includes failure. I have a friend of mine that I'm one of the smartest guys I've ever known. He's been working on something for 4 years, and he wants it to be perfect before he goes out there. And I go, if you got that great idea and you don't do it, that's a shame. Get out there. I told him, I said, get out there and fail. What's the worst that can happen? Did
you ever fail a business?
Yeah, if you call failure, I didn't take it all the way to, like when I had a bar for 13 years, it was devastating when I had to sell it by a series of events. But I look back now, and that was a peg. If that hadn't happened, we wouldn't be sitting here. I think a lot of, that's what I always look back at, failures at the time. People, I want to tell you another thing, 99.999% of everything people worry about never comes to fruition.
So stop worrying, you're saying.
Yeah, stop
Get out
worrying.
there and do your thing.
Stop worrying, because if you look back in your own life, I look back at mine, they got a 1 in a million, 1 in a billion. This never happens. When do you combine them and it becomes a miracle? That's why I knew God was following me through that, having that faith. But if you look back, most people, you look back and say, for entrepreneurs, inventors, whatever, if something didn't happen here, you wouldn't be here. When I got real big, and when I told you the 5 employees to 500, I took in tens of millions, $100 million in 6 months. At the end of it, I owed like $5 million. Everything was done wrong. Other people had took advantage, but I learned from that. And then I learned so much from that. And so another thing too I want to mention, if an entrepreneur or out there, or a business, learn from someone that you trust in that business, so you can learn a lot and say, okay, what have you done? And so you don't have to all this wasted time, that you could save time on learning what he's done, his failures and his successes.
And is there anything you would have done differently?
I would not have done one thing different if I wasn't sitting right here, if it changed where I'm at right now. Sure, I do look back. Do I have regrets, with my addiction and a 20-year marriage where, my kids, that maybe they were, they were affected. I look back, did I lose some time? Was it wasted time? I think a lot of addicts look back and say, wow, I wasted all the time. No, it's starting right here. There's Proverbs 3:5-6, trust in the Lord with all your heart. Lean not to your own understanding, acknowledge him in every way, and he will guide your paths. And for me, that became real, not to look back and just say, with God, all things are possible. And I think, so there's really no regrets, all right? If, I'm going to use that with my past, my story, to do better.
Don't forget, folks, you can watch Levin TV by going to blazetv.com/Mark, blazetv.com/Mark, and sign up there, or give us a call at 844-LEVIN-TV, 844-LEVIN-TV. It's very exciting over there. We'd love to have you. I'll be right back. You're a wealthy man. You're a famous man. You think you'll ever run for office?
Well, I get asked all the time, and I think if God had me run for office, I would. That's what I tell the media. That's what I tell everybody I talk to. But right now, I think where God's put my platform to help everything that's going on now with help the addiction, helping people get to faith, help our president, and I think the platform I can do a lot good there rather than. Not to say I wouldn't, if God, said, hey, Mike, if I got it in prayer, I want you to do this. I'm open to anything, just like I was when I had the dream and that came from God to, go all in, and when I went all in for our president. And then it doesn't matter. Then it's on God. I can do all the pushback and all the things that's going, it's put my faith in that. And they ask me every day, what's your busiest day? I said, right here.
As I listen to you, the different phases you've gone through in your life, and yet that consistency with faith. But the different phases you go through in your life,
right.
You're living a very full life, aren't you?
Yeah, it's amazing.
You grab that gold ring and you run with it, don't you?
It's been like living inside of a movie. I mean, you go back in the day to where I'd be having a gun to my head at some place in some city, and then the next day be eating with 3 millionaires with 3 forks and going and realizing this.
I understand 2 forks. What do you do with 3 forks?
I don't know.
Okay.
I'm still trying to figure it out. But I just remember this actually happened. I was in a place, in a very bad place in a city with a gun, held captive. Get everything back. Everything was out to different crack, middle of the night. My wedding ring, all these different things. I got them all back, ended up back in Minnesota, Minneapolis. The next day, we're eating with 3 millionaires, and all of them pulled me away from the table and said, whatever you do, don't tell them you don't have any money. And I felt safer with the guy the day before.
You were making a presentation?
No, these were all trying to carve up my company. So my company's been trying to be taken so many times. That's stuff we haven't touched on. All the betrayal and all these things. They were all shysters trying to carve up as businessmen, and here I felt safer in the hood with a gun. I knew where their pain was coming from. These guys, I didn't understand the corruption and the money and the greed, and I'm going,
But you've lived different lives.
Yeah.
You've been in different places in your life. Do you ever sit back, and I know you thank God,
Yeah.
but it's a lot of you.
Yeah.
Do you ever sit back and say, I got to pinch myself. I can't believe I can't believe I'm doing these things.
Here's a defining moment. It was actually in, the president was elected. It was summer. I was invited to the White House in the summer of 2017, and I go in there. It's a manufacturers summit, and here's my name tag, and there's like 20 people, and I'm getting this little tour, and I'm still surreal. I'm in the White House, and I go, who's sitting here? There was no name tag, and the guy says, the president is. He wanted to sit by you, and I'm going, what? Now there, I'm going. I just like my life flashing back and going. Now my friend's seen that. And I think there's probably 20 of them said, Jesus is real. This is Mike Lindell, this ex-crack addict, sitting with the president. And these are, for me, that's why I say like living inside of a movie. I think back to the old Mike, or in decades, it's like I would always kind of living inside of a movie with 14 near-death experiences and all these things that I didn't think happened to normal people or anybody. And I think, and then all of a sudden now you're here. If you'd have took a thing and went, like one of the things too for me is where I had that fear where I couldn't talk to people, even two people at the same time. I was very shy. And now if you'd have opened up a picture in the future and went, whoa, and there I'm speaking to 50,000 people, I would go, that ain't happening. And those are those two things that really get to me, where I get goosebumps and go, God used my weakness of not being able to talk to be able to spread and help.
And in a lot of countries, most countries, you would never go from here.
Right.
To here.
USA.
USA. We'll be right back. Let me ask you a question I ask a lot of my guests. Where do you see this country heading in the next 5 to 10 years? You can see these negative forces in the culture and all around. On the other hand, we're a vibrant people. We're a great people. We've overcome an awful lot. You've overcome an awful lot. Where do you think we're going to be?
I think it's going to be amazing. And I see what's going on right now, and it just keeps getting better and better. If you actually would shut off the TV, or if you could shut
this show.
Yeah, except this show. But I mean, shut off the news and go look around you and what's going on. And by the way, Donald Trump's going to win by over 380 electoral votes. It's just going to be a massive win because everybody knows what he's done. And people are going to keep jumping in. Like I said, everybody loves our president. Some just don't know it yet. And for me, God gave us grace on November 8th, 2016. This was a turning point in history where now we're going to go on, and everybody, pretty soon, that very loud or the silent majority hits flip-flop, and pretty soon that voice over here is going to be
a lot of people in the press are going to say, well, there's Mike talking about God giving us grace. That is, God giving us an opportunity to elect Donald Trump.
Right.
He must be some kind of throwback. He must be a deplorable. He must be,
No. I'm a common sense. I'm a businessman. I never knew anything about politics. I know what's right, what's wrong, and what's working. And our president is amazing, and he's done it in fight of the fight every day. I get it, but for me, it's like they'll try and attack me, and then 99% will attack the ones attacking me. That's why I know everybody really deep down, they're going, wow, it's doing so good. But there's this way over here, this force or whatever, that's trying to stop it. And pretty soon, everyone's going to go, wow, this is great, the direction we're going. And it's going to be, I see so many things. I see for myself personally, addiction, these addiction getting wiped out in the next 6 years. Look what the president did with ISIS in 2 years. Boom, gone. Hello. That was one of my biggest worries. Here's the addiction. It came on strong. Whew, addiction. Let's get it gone.
And he's focused on this opioid crisis.
Absolutely. I was there when he signed the opioid bill.
He was there, more than anybody.
Yeah, so his passion is to help this, not just the country, this opioid addiction, to destroy it. That's one of his biggest things right now. I was there when he signed it, and everything I'm doing with my Lindell Recovery Network plugs right into that, and it's
You're very very excited.
I'm very
about this,
excited for the
and I
future.
wanna
It's
tell you
going to be
something.
amazing.
It's been absolutely fascinating to talk to you on the air and off the air. I
Mark,
wanna
thank you for having me on.
Putting
God
my head
bless
on
you.
your pillow will never be the same again. That's it, folks. I'll see you next time on Life, Liberty, and Levin.